Think about it. Every hiring decision is a choice that can make or break a team, a culture, and even an entire company. So how do we make the right choice? Hi, I'm Dr. Mickey, and welcome to Inside the Mind of Hiring. Here we'll uncover the psychology and strategy behind effective hiring. Because the right fit isn't just about skill or experience. It's about understanding people, their motivations, their strengths, and the shadows of their shortcomings. Together, we'll tackle the tough questions. How do we look beyond bias? How do we find the qualities that make people not just qualified hires, but the right hires? This is about identifying leaders who drive success, lift morale, and actualize a company's vision. Inside the Mind of Hiring starts now.
Hey, everybody. I am the co-host of this show with the most amazing Dr. Mickey Fineberg. Dr. Mickey is like what I call him. He is an expert. He is a leader in this field from both sides of the coin. For those of you out there that are seeking the jobs and for the organizations that are seeking the right people for the jobs. Today, you could see both of us are dressed a little differently on purpose, and you'll hear why in a minute. Think about this. He and I were talking about what should this show be about. Here's what this show should be about. Don't get fired before you're hired. So Dr. Mickey is going to walk us through all the things your boss has never told you, your mama never told you, nobody ever told you, that are so seriously important, especially in the world we live in now. Dr. Mickey, this is a fun show, right?
Well, I hope so.
It's not fun for those of you out here who hear some of this and are like, oh my God, let me go change my shirt. Yes, go change your shirt. So you prepared, some of the most significant things in your history, your career. You have heard hiring managers, CEOs tell you, like, Dr. Mickey, why in the world did you send me that guy, right? Or that woman, or that person. Yeah, you've heard it all. So today you're going to share the good, the bad, and the ugly, aren't you?
Of course.
All right. So what's number one on your hit parade of don't get fired before you're hired?
Well, let's say you're talking to somebody like me, a business psychologist, in a Zoom interview context. But I'm going to broaden it from there, and give you other situations as well. But you could in fact have to encounter somebody like me who's like a little bit hyper analytical about what I'm facing, in terms of a candidate. So let's say you're interviewing for a professional or management job with a business psychologist, but it certainly could be any hiring manager that's an astute interviewer. So let's first talk about how you should look. Well, is the job for a SaaS firm in Los Angeles, or is it for an investment banking firm in New York City? So there's going to be differences in those environments. So let's say it's a shorts and tees type of environment that might exist with a technical, SaaS company in LA, where a lot of the employees dress like that. Should you dress like that for an interview? No, you shouldn't. You should dress at least business casual for an interview that where the environment is pretty. Some people call it grunge. But
well, I'm from Seattle. We definitely, Stephen will tell you that. We definitely call it grunge.
Right.
Not to be mistaken, though, there's a certain place for that. But you've got to match up where you're going for the job.
Yeah, you got to think a level above when you're, because you're not in the company yet. You're an outsider, you're looking to join, and you're putting your best foot forward. Now, certainly if you're a savant or a genius and they know that coming in, then maybe you can get away with that. But normally, it's not a good idea. Dress business casual. If the environment is business casual for the interview, for interview purposes, whether it's in person or on something like Zoom, you wear maybe a dress shirt and a tie. A woman wears a nice blouse, maybe an accessory. Um, uh, Guy can certainly do well with a sport jacket and
Yeah.
dress shirt.
Mhm.
A woman could do okay with a blazer, but I found that level, which is a cut above the business casual level, would work for you better in an interview if you just showed up business casual.
Yeah. And
Think of
I'm wearing business casual. I just want to
yes,
tell just so what I'm wearing is business casual. You can't see the jacket. It's a little black, but it's kind of silky. It moves when I move. Very Pacific Northwest colors, right? I wore
right,
today, to get ready for this. Of course, I would never put this out if I were going on that interview. But you dress in a way that fits. How do I know that? My first time I moved here, brought my consulting company, Pacific Northwest. That was an epic fail. That's what they call epic fail because I
right,
come from New York and I'm
right,
dressed like it's New York.
right,
It's not. And your first clue is when the general manager or CEO or AVP shows up in shorts.
right.
Right. That should be a clue.
Well,
Now, but you don't dress like them, Dr. Mickey. It's just an
you
idea.
don't. You
No, you
don't
don't.
dress like them because they're not, you can say things about your brother, but you but if you're a candidate for a job, you shouldn't come like in that kind of attire. You don't dress the way they dress. You
To
dress
be,
a little bit, and frankly, they're going to respect that more.
yeah.
Um,
Don't
I,
wear sweats. Okay. Unless you're going for a fitness job, right?
Well, sweats or a t-shirt or a baseball hat is going to say, don't expect too much from me because if you do, you're going to be disappointed in most circumstances. So it could be it certainly could be, it definitely would be a disqualifier in a lot of different situations. And don't be afraid of dressing up. I mean, I walked into a company looking for a consulting job or a relationship. And it was a company that was a distributor for a Japanese company of guitars and drums. And, they would modify guitars and drums and send them to retailers or sell them to retailers around the country. And it was a very casual environment. And the president that I interviewed with was quite casual. I think he was wearing shorts and a t-shirt when I got there. I wore a suit. And it was one of the better business relationships I ever established. I
Yeah.
think he respected that
Yeah.
because we could talk to each other. But I
Yeah.
think it was important to come in to the interview in a respectful way that I knew I was an outsider and I was trying to impress him. I wanted to impress him, and I was able to do that. So I always it never hurts to dress a little above. Certainly, it's a formal business environment. You can't wear a
Mhm.
tuxedo or a ball gown, but you dress at that level, though. You
Yeah.
definitely dress at that level.
And
Um,
let us give you a couple of things because we're going to move on to the resume. But I think the number one important thing, you and I were joking about this a little bit, but it's not really a joke. I mean, if you live here where I live, chances are you're going to be in wet weather a large part of the time. Not today, we had
right,
snow yesterday, but you are. If you live where you live in the summer, the perspiration from humidity is dripping down your face. There is no
right.
question about it. Even if you have to go from the car to get into the deal, check the mirror.
Yeah, absolutely. Your glasses could be dirty. You could have like a little food remnant on your face or on your clothes.
Like last night's
Um,
dinner.
your makeup could be a little bit, out of whack, and you might have you might have some hair a little astray.
Yeah.
So you don't want to send a message that you're sloppy, careless, or oblivious.
Yeah, I
So
remember doing an interview once. I'm walking in and doing it, and the first thing out of the interview is the first thing. Good news, jokingly, and I did get the job. But the first thing out of the interviewer's face was, "Oh my gosh, you're wearing your lipstick all over your teeth." Here's a tissue.
Yeah, you're going to end up with people that are very tolerant and understanding, but other people might think that you're careless, sloppy, or
Yeah.
oblivious.
Well,
And so you could get fired.
you could get in trouble. And with that thing, I said, you know what? I didn't want to wear the lipstick to begin with, but I blamed you. I blamed my coach.
Right.
My employment coach said I should wear lipstick. The person that was interviewing, Vandermoss, said to me,
Yeah.
fire them. Okay, let's talk about the resume, Dr. Mickey.
Okay.
Next.
All right, let's try to be succinct here. In addition to job titles, of course, which is important, be end results in your orientation. For example, sales growth, profitable sales growth in New Jersey, PA, and Delaware. It's kind of like an end result oriented type of statement. That's important to say. And then you want to talk about achievements, key achievements. What you want to avoid are activity details, duty details. They're going to say that you're too detail oriented, that you don't get your priorities, and you don't grasp the bigger picture. Don't grasp the bigger picture. So stay away from those details. You want to be honest. What's that? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you bleeped out for a little bit there, if you're going, and by the way, this is one of these things, you have to look at the job you're going for, right? What do you think, Dr. Mickey? People do like one resume. Now that will work if you know you're in an industry like art.
Sure.
Have a business resume because you really don't want that business job, do you? not if you're an artist.
Right.
But what do you think about having multiple resumes?
Well, I think it's a good idea. Let's say some people do have multiple resumes that they tailor to certain industries. If their job is more generic, let's say like HR or IT. So, but if it's a media company, for example, you might want to include a picture. Advertising, marketing type of job, you want to include some type of shot of your face shot of yourself. If it's not, they might say, well, what is this person really trying to sell? So you have to be careful about that. But I think for the most part, certain industries might have certain lingo, certain aspects of their cultures that you want to capture and attach your language to that. So I think in that sense, sometimes multiple industries resumes could be important.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, I think if you're kind of end results oriented and you're achievement oriented, you're going to be attracted to multiple different kinds of industries.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to emphasize that in your resume.
Yeah. So for those of you out there, scented resumes only worked in Legally Blonde, right there. That's when they worked. Or if you're in an industry, but here's what not to do. If you're in an industry with Sephora, you're in an industry with Chanel, please don't use somebody else's fragrance on your resume. That's just a tip from me.
Yeah, it's like the other dressing with the other uniform.
Oh my gosh. It's like
the other company's colors.
The other company. I had that happen to one of my people I was coaching. Right. And I said, didn't you, purple and gold, that's the colors. The other team is red. So but these are things you've got to do your homework. All right, let's get down to this. I'm walking in. I'm all of that's good. I'm going in and I'm walking into the room and I walk in and I meet you. Right. What is my intro like here, Dr. Mickey?
Yeah. Connect with me, please, whether it's a Zoom interview or in person. Connect with me on a personal level. Get to know me prior. We talked about that in the prior episode. Understand what I do and what my challenges are in some ways. Find common ground. Are you an Eagles fan? That kind of thing, which I am. So we can talk about that a little bit to kind of break the ice and develop a personal connection and some rapport, which I think is important, and express a little empathy. I've tested over 12,000 people in my career.
Oh my God.
And One person out of that 12,000 said, when he was the candidate and I was interviewing him, he said, Dr. Mickey, I bet you this is harder for you than it is for me. And you know something? He was right. He was right because of what was at stake and the fact that I have to report intelligently and accurately on a person I didn't know very well. By the time I had to finish the interview and look at his test results, I had to write up something that was really meaningful and accurate. And he knew that.
Yeah.
And that really made that fellow distinctive for me and really told me that he's got a sense of empathy and really tries or anticipates what people really want to hear or would like to hear from a candidate. So I think that's
so helpful. That right there, what you shared is so helpful because that was a personal connection with you. And I'm not sure how you responded, but you got to know that person in a way that you could have spent 2 hours with them and never known that part of him.
Right.
All right. Now I'm in front of you, Dr. Mickey, or I'm in front of my old boss, and we're now at the shredded interview.
Well, first, it's very important fundamentally, Dr. Pat, to answer questions asked. Okay? Answer
No, not
questions.
that. Not that.
What are you looking for?
I can't tell you how many times I didn't do that. But this is really important because you think that they don't know that you're not answering the question. They do know.
The interviewer, most definitely. They're very sensitive to that. And if you don't, it could be viewed as you don't listen very well. It could be viewed that you're evasive. You're not a politician. Politicians can get away with that. If you're interviewing for a job, it's not a good idea. Now, just like your resume, I think it's important to find ways to describe measurable achievements in the context of an interview as well, or things that are maybe not mentioned on your resume that the interviewer maybe wants to hear or should want to hear, or wants to, they're going to be attracted by that. So basically, skilled interviewers are going to ask you situational questions. What did you do? What would you do in a certain situation in terms of, let's say you have an employee with a performance problem, or they might ask you behavioral questions, what they call behavioral questions. What did you do? Because they think you have the experience in a circumstance of this nature. What did you do? What was the outcome? Try to incorporate achievements in answers like that, as well as making them sound like good answers to questions of that nature.
And don't fall into the trap. What's a trap? Here's the trap. They're going to give you a hypothetical, probably about an industry that you're not even interviewing for. They may give you the crazy ambulance question. I love that one. I'd love to give that one. But they may ask you that and they may go through, if you're in this situation and this is what's going on, blah, 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 what would you do first? Because they're trying to find something out, Dr. Mickey. Let's talk about that. Because a lot of times when I'm coaching people in this arena, I did that scenario with a client about 2 years ago. And I went through a scenario. It only took me about 90 seconds. And he said, this was the answer. When I interview for the ambulance job, I'll let you know. I was like, okay. Dr. Mickey's going to tell you how to do this.
Well, yeah, some interviewers, they might say, what are you going to do first, and give you multiple choice. I never heard of that style myself, but I could see that happening.
You could tell how mean I can be in an interview. No, but I worked in HR. You got to remember where I came from. I worked in HR for the top research company in the world, Bell Labs. And clearly, Dr. Mickey, what you said, the top of the food chain people, they don't get interviewed. They get an offer. So we're not really talking about that, are we?
Right. No. The vast majority of times you have to sell yourself. Your reputation doesn't precede you. Like I said, if you're a genius, a savant, or a fabulous leader, and they know that about your reputation. More often than not, they're going to say, even if you're a leader, you're going to fit in here, is what they want to know. And so they're going to be exploring that. But there are those rare cases where people are going to get an offer before they really have to say that much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in most, the vast majority of cases, you're going to have to fight for that offer or
Mhm.
sell them on making you an offer. I also think it's important as much as possible to avoid ums and you knows. In other words, don't do what I say or do. Do what I say, but don't do what I do, because I have a tendency to do that. Um, Convey humor at key times. It's okay to convey some humor,
Yeah,
but
it is.
don't be sarcastic or cynical. Not a good idea, because that's the way they think you're going to be in their environment, is sarcastic and cynical, and it's not a great people relationship type of attitude to convey those attitudes. So and again, relate. You're going to know, you should know something about that company. So you should relate your answers as much as possible to the organization's culture and mission.
Mhm.
Um, if you think and you pretty much know it's a servant leadership environment, um, describe yourself as much as genuine that
Mhm.
way, as a kind of somebody that's helpful and an
Mhm.
enabler of people. If it's a matrix kind of environment, talk about yourself as being good at working with your peers and working through conflicts with your peers, influencing your peers, collaborating with your peers. That you don't have the need to drive things up to the boss and then have them come down again, so that you can solve things at a peer level.
Yeah.
Emphasize that.
Well, I
Look,
want to just give an example. If you're looking at my background, we did this for today. Dr. Mickey and I did this for today on purpose, the way we look. If you look at my background, if you go to look at the TTR logo, you have to assume that I'm playing the role of interviewing for my own company. If you do that, you'll see our logo is gold and it's teal. In the background, you see the gold rims around some of my picture. I'm wearing a very light version of a color in our logo. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that, but you really do have to be mindful. Whatever you do not wear, especially if you are interviewing for a company that's highly competitive and their branding is about as clear as it could be, and they have competition, you just want to be mindful enough to know this is what my organization is I'm interviewing for. Don't walk in. If you really are interviewing at the University of Washington for a job, please don't walk in with cougar colors. Now, I have nothing against y'all cougars, so don't go there. But it's just a level of mindfulness you have to have. See,
yeah,
Dr.
oh
Mickey
yeah,
got those cougar colors on right now.
right. No, yeah, that's right. I mean, you're saying it now. You said it in the last episode. Some people are going to, it's going to go over their head. Other people are going to be concerned about that.
Mhm.
So you don't want to create a situation where you can have some negative variability in terms of what the interviewer perceives land on you. You don't want that. Um, I think it's important to come to the point when you're in an interview. It's a very basic issue. Come to the point. Um, Avoid tangential remarks. Um, it's just going to, if you talk too much, and I've seen CEOs do this, CEO candidates talk too much and get into weird tangents. It's bad. It's not going to serve them well. It's not going to serve you well. If you don't come to the point, and if you're too wordy, what are they going to think? You're an unclear communicator. They're going to think that. They're going to think that you're selfish in conversation. They're going to think you're over anxious about making a positive impression. So you want to avoid wordiness, not coming to the point, and sticking with the answer. And avoid criticizing your bosses, avoid criticizing the CEO of companies that you work for, avoid criticizing the owner or founder, particularly, because you're going to come across as being intolerant and overly critical to the interviewer in most cases. Something I'd like to emphasize here, if you're in a Zoom interview, um, dogs are wonderful animals and they're great pets. But I think it's important to curb or eliminate dog barking. Um, It can
You mean
be,
online for the Zoom, for an online
yeah,
interview?
for an online
Oh,
interview.
yeah,
It's not going to
yeah.
be an issue generally in person.
Hmm.
But some people will think it's cute, and that you'll be endearing to them because you have a dog. Other people will be they'll lose their peace of mind. They'll be distracted by it, and I think it's important to be sensitive to that, particularly in a Zoom interview
Yeah,
context.
yeah.
You don't want to communicate to people that if you can't control or if you can't influence your own dog to be quiet or just not even make it an issue, then maybe you can't influence others, and you could come across as inconsiderate of the interviewer or the business psychologist if your dog is barking. Okay. Now, if you want to insert something along those lines,
Well,
that
you
might
know,
be thing
look,
because I do like dogs. I just don't, when
no,
it's
you have to be fully present. I want to make the point about this fully present. I can tell in a hot minute when somebody is doing a Zoom interview with me and they are multitasking, especially for you all. If you do not have non-reflective, non-glare glasses, we can see everything in them.
right,
So I just want to be very clear. The other thing that I want to emphasize is I've always been impressed with people that I interview, especially for the producer job, who are standing. I don't know what that's about for me, but they're standing. And you could tell they know and they're ready to talk, right? Now, if I ask them to show me something on the interview, they'll step up to their computer, but they're standing. If you're interviewing for a producer job, they're standing. Their microphone works really well. Their camera's set up really well. And these are things that you didn't ask them to do, but you notice that, right?
right.
Practice, 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 practice. The other thing I want to say for all of you out there, one of the greatest things that I was ever told was, Pat, if you are looking for a job and you're unemployed, go find the building downtown in Seattle, the company you want to work for, dress like you want to work for it, and go sit there and work for 2 to 3 hours in their coffee lobby. Then get on the bus and leave and come back home. And why was that? I really wanted this job in this consulting firm. I really wanted it. So what was the strategy? Every day at 10 o'clock, I knew the owner of the company came downstairs for coffee.
Ah,
I knew him. I looked him up, knew him, knew his whole staff.
right.
So what did I do? I was present. I was smiling. So when I went to the interview, which was about a month later, they recognized me. Not in a negative way.
Right.
Right.
They didn't think you were an intruder.
They didn't think I was an intruder.
Right.
And they mentioned it to me. And I said, well, I really wanted to work for your firm. And so I believe in putting myself in a place where you were so that I could experience the energy of working for you. I mean, that little answer right there got me the job. Now that's not going to work for everybody. Remember, y'all, I'm in Seattle. That answer does work in Seattle.
Right.
Let's talk about career objectives. We're going to go a little bit longer in this show so we can finish this up.
Okay. Well, I think if you're asking me about the question about career objectives, think one level up. What you don't want to come across as you're not ambitious and you don't care, but you don't want to come across as presumptuous or entitled either. But I think it's safe and a good practice to say, hey, look, I would like to be considered a succession candidate for my boss or maybe another area of the company in the next level up in 2 to 3 years, a viable succession candidate. It's not a great idea. I want my boss's job, or I want your job if you're going to be the hiring manager.
Nobody wants my job, just saying.
Yeah. But I think being a succession or promotion worthy candidate, I think is a good answer to a question like that. Maybe one level up, no more than 2 levels up.
That is so important. In my industry, we have transient, is that the right word? We have a lot of people that come through the audio, the programming, right now, especially in and out. And so when I interview somebody and as part of the interview, they talk about this as a stepping stone to their ultimate career, you're out.
Right.
That's not what I'm looking for. It doesn't mean
Right.
that there's something wrong with your answer.
Right.
But the
Right.
other thing that's really important about this is you don't have to know everything. When you're talking about your career and your objectives, you want to be able to tell stories as often as you can. I think one of the toughest answers, Dr. Mickey, and let's address this, is when you get asked, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And some people will be that direct. Other people beat around the bush with that question, but you get that question. And a lot of times you're not ready for it, or if you're ready for it, you just blurt something out. But if you use a metaphor or you can tell a story about an area you want to improve in, they want to hear that from you.
Oh, absolutely. That's about, you can joke around and say ice cream or chocolate is your weakness, but then ultimately you got to talk about your weaknesses in a realistic, genuine way and say what you're doing to manage them.
Yeah.
That's critical.
Yeah.
And be generous about your strengths too and the implications of those, but talk about your weaknesses. You know, I have this need to make a positive impression. It's excessive. So I have a tendency to diminish or distance myself from mistakes. And I got feedback on it. It really rocked me. And now, I learn that I can own up and I should own up clearly and definitively and completely on mistakes I make with my people, my peers, my boss, and have a solution about it.
Yeah.
And it has really served me well. The other thing wasn't very good for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, if you're interviewing with us for a sales position here, we absolutely want to know that you're going to come from the heart, that you want to help people. So what would be the downside of that we look for? When you're not able to say, I really want to help people. I know that your company does that. I also know that helping people, especially in the industry that you're in, Dr. Pat, also means that you have operating expenses that have to be covered. You're a company. So you have to have a balance of how much you help people. But remember, at the end of the day, that help is of value and you should be paid well for it. That was an answer I got from somebody.
Mm.
And that was one of the best answers that I ever received in that. And then, of course, my follow-up was, so what are your financial goals for your sales position?
Mhm.
What would you like to make? If you're on a 30% commission, tell me what you're willing to commit to every week. You see, prepare yourself. You're not going to be, we're giving people very general type scenarios. We're not giving the oddball extremes, are we?
Nope.
No. What's an oddball extreme? You walk into an interview, the guy's got 5 minutes to interview you, or the manager,
Right.
they have 5 minutes to interview. That's an oddball. You either have to talk really fast, right?
Mhm.
What you don't want to do is say, I don't think you have a lot of time today. Would you like me to come back? Don't do that.
Right.
But the other end of it is you're on an interview and they're so vague. You go through 45 minutes and you don't have a clue about what you're interviewing for.
Wow. That's strange. That's strange. I'm sure it happens.
I told you
I'm
the
sure.
story that happened. I told you the one that I told you was I had somebody walk into an interview. It was 45 minutes until the person realized, oh my gosh, I'm not interviewing with the person I thought. This is some other manager. Didn't even
Right.
know it. Never introduced
Well,
themselves. Didn't put it together. But
right.
these are the things, look, what do you really want people to avoid? Let's wrap it up with the do not do this thing. Especially, let's talk about salary and benefits. Where does that come in?
Wow. Well, that comes in during the offer phase. Um, it doesn't come in when they ask you about your career goals. I think it's unless they get into that, but it's most appropriate during the offer phase to talk about that. And I think it's the way you just talked about that woman that you interviewed that talked about service via help is a value, and I think I should get paid for that. Yeah, of course. You can't be altruistic about things that you do, especially if you're in a profession that's designed to help people, and a lot are. Um, and but I don't think it's a good idea to sell yourself short
Mhm.
and to ask for more if you think you not so much deserve it. If you're worth more, ask
Mhm.
for more. It's a matter of saying that I can really add value here, and I would appreciate your consideration of maybe 10% more than what you're talking about. But
Yeah.
that's part of the negotiation. But I wouldn't address that salary and benefits until the offer phase.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even if it comes up, you have to have an answer where you say, I've given this a lot of thought. I'd really like to know a little bit more about
Mhm.
that in the next
Mhm.
interview we do. So that's the assumptive close.
Right. Oh,
If
yes.
that's the assumptive
Yeah.
close, if the other person brings it up, what you're saying is, you know, Mr. Long, I would love to know more about that in the
Right.
next
Right.
interview. If we could talk about that more,
Right.
this
You
was
say I
really
really
exciting.
like, yeah, you close the interview with a potential close. It's a great point. You say something, I hope we can talk further. I hope we can get to
Yeah,
the offer. I'm really looking forward to talking about the possibility of working here.
yeah, yeah.
And I think if you're any example of the people that I might meet here and would be
Mhm,
my coworkers,
mhm.
I really would be excited about the prospects of working here. So I'm in right now. So
Yeah,
let's go to the next phase.
yeah. And we want to leave you with this because we're in a different world now. What you do on the internet, on your socials, what you post, what you say is forever embedded. You never know who's looking. I mean, seriously, Dr. Mickey, this is a whole different world. I
Mhm.
often thought about what if I were a 20-something person now out there interviewing, I'd probably be in so much trouble. But you have to be mindful of how you are in the outside world because some of these companies, especially the bigger ones, they have got people that do nothing but scan. So if you're interviewing at a Google, let's just say, and they ask you what kind of service work you do, and you make up a story about the Peace Corps and they cannot find any record of you, you have to be aligned.
Oh, gee, hey, you, you don't want to be caught with your pants down.
Never.
And you don't want to ever, ever, ever in any way, shape, or form lie because a zero times 10 million is still zero and it's automatic disqualification.
Out of the gate. The
Right.
other thing, too, is there are some things we didn't talk about, what we do want you to think about. You may get asked, what are your hobbies? What do you do?
Mhm.
And I'm not saying for you not to be true and realistic, because again, they'll go to your socials and they'll see that this is what you're really engaged in. But these are questions they want to know about you. Now, a lot of times when I'm asked the hobby question, I already know what I say. And then I stop and I say, well, what do you like to do?
Mhm.
Why do you do that?
Well, you
But
want to you want to express some, interest
yeah,
and empathy in the people in the person that's asking you the question. It's like
yes,
it's finding common ground. It doesn't have to be stuck in the intro phase, especially
yeah.
if it's something a little bit more on the personal side, not the business side that they want to know about you. So you can touche. Yes, you certainly can and should.
Leave the room on a high note. If you're a handshaker and you see that was done on the intro, leave the room shaking hands.
Of
Know
course.
that when you leave that room, first impression and last impressions, they will remember what you say in the last 60 seconds of your interview, right, Dr. Mickey?
They will. They will.
Mm.
They actually remember the last thing you say and the first thing you say more than what you said in the middle.
Yeah, that's right. As a
It's
matter of
it's
fact, if you really blow it in the first part of it, they can't think of anything but that. But
right.
you're not going to blow it because we've given you a lot of tips. Dr. Mickey, how do people find out more about you? Thank you for this today.
Well, they can certainly look me up at uh, deltaconsultants.com or look up Dr. Mickey Fineberg, Fineberg, on LinkedIn. It's a business, you know what it is.
Yeah,
And I'm there, and I've got a lot of things to say about a lot of things, and particularly about the challenge of hiring the right people.
exactly.
That's basically my business.
And for those of you out there that don't want to get fired before you're hired, you need to call Dr. Mickey. This is the world where you must be prepared. Everyone knows what the competition is like. What Dr. Mickey can help you with is navigate some stormy waters to help you build confidence so that you get the job you love. Please take him up on this. Please pass this on. So many of you are seeking that job you love, and we don't want you to step in the potholes we've stepped in, right, Dr. Mickey?
Right. Seen everything.
Yeah, we have. Hey, thank you all. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you all for tuning us in, turning us on.
Thank you.
We'll have more to come on this. Every show we'll provide you with a tip, an option, and probably a pretty funny story. We'll see you next time.
You have been listening to Inside the Mind of Hiring with me, Dr. Mickey Fineberg. Tune in the first and third Tuesday at 11 on Transformation Talk Radio to discover the psychology of making successful hiring decisions. In each episode, hiring managers and HR pros will learn how to leverage assessments and other key screening sources and avoid common pitfalls. Job seekers will gain insight into successfully presenting themselves. For more information on assessing people for mission-critical jobs and on career assessment and coaching, visit deltaconsultants.com and my LinkedIn profile. If you'd like to write me personally, it's Mickey, Mickey, at deltaconsultants.com.
The views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the station, its management, or advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.